The luxurious ballroom of the Grand Astoria Hotel shimmered like a palace, every corner draped in white roses and golden silk. The air carried the soft notes of a live orchestra, and the guests, dressed in designer gowns and tuxedos, buzzed with excitement for the wedding of the year. Eliza Parker stood at the entrance, clutching the tiny hands of her twin boys. She wasn't dressed for such an extravagant event. Her simple lavender dress paled against the diamonds and silk around her. But the invitation had seemed so genuine, handwritten with her name, urging her to attend. She thought it was from her old college friend who sometimes worked at these events. And she had been desperate for a small escape, a night out with her boys. But the moment she walked inside, she knew something was wrong. Ushers smiled politely and directed her toward a seat near the front. Guests gave her curious looks, some kind, others judgmental. The twins, Ethan and Evan, clung to her dress, their wide hazel eyes sparkling at the chandeliers. "Mommy," Ethan whispered, "is this a fairy tale castle?" Eliza forced a smile, though her stomach tightened with unease. "Something like that, sweetheart." Just as she debated sneaking out before anyone noticed, the music changed. A collective hush fell over the room. The groom was entering. The tall double doors opened, and in stepped Alexander Stone. Billionaire, media tycoon, one of the most powerful men in the country. His commanding presence silenced the room, every step confident, precise. His tailored black suit was perfection, and the cold determination in his gray eyes was enough to make even the boldest men step aside. Eliza froze. Her chest constricted as memories came rushing back. The nights they had shared years ago, the promises, the heartbreak when he disappeared from her life without explanation. She hadn't seen him since. And now, he was the groom. But Alexander wasn't looking at the crowd. His gaze, sharp and calculating, swept the room, until it landed on her. He stopped. Every muscle in his body tensed, his jaw clenching as if he'd seen a ghost. The murmurs began instantly among the guests, confusion rippling through the hall. And then his eyes shifted downward. To the twins. The boys tilted their heads curiously, their identical faces a mirror of Alexander's own childhood photos she had once seen in the papers. The same storm gray eyes. The same sharp jawline. For the first time in his life, Alexander Stone, the untouchable billionaire groom, lost control. His steps faltered, his composure cracked. "Those children," he muttered, barely audible, but Eliza heard him. Her heart pounded violently in her chest. The twins, sensing the tension, pressed closer against her. "Mommy, who is that man?" Evan asked softly. Eliza's lips parted, but no words came. Because how could she explain? How could she tell them that the entire ballroom seemed to hold its breath? All eyes were locked on Alexander Stone, the man who had never once faltered in front of a boardroom, press, or negotiation table. Yet here he stood, frozen at his own wedding, staring at Eliza and her twins as if the world had just shifted beneath his feet. His bride, Cassandra Hale, an heiress from one of the wealthiest families in New York, stepped forward in her glittering white gown, confusion flashing across her face. "Alexander," she called softly, her voice trembling. "What's wrong?" But Alexander didn't answer. He tore his gaze from Eliza only long enough to look at the boys again, his chest heaving as though he'd been struck. Then, ignoring the stunned gasps of the crowd, he strode away from the altar. Each step echoed against the marble floor until he stopped just inches from Eliza. The twins shrank back behind her, but his eyes softened the moment he saw their frightened little faces. "Eliza," his voice was raw, hoarse, unlike the cold, commanding tone the world knew him for. "Why didn't you tell me?" Eliza's breath hitched. The question carried years of unspoken history. She tightened her grip on the boys, her voice breaking. "Because you left, Alexander. Because your world had no place for me, or them." The room erupted in murmurs. Guests leaned toward one another, whispering. The press, unable to resist, lifted their phones and cameras, capturing every second. Cassandra's face drained of color. She hurried down the aisle, fury burning through her composure. "Alexander, what is going on?" Her voice rose, sharp and panicked. "Who is this woman? And why? Why are you looking at those children like that?" But Alexander didn't flinch. His eyes stayed locked on Eliza, his voice steady but trembling at the edges. "Because those children, they're mine." Gasps echoed across the ballroom like a wave. Cassandra stumbled back as if struck, her perfectly polished mask crumbling. Eliza shook her head, tears threatening to spill. You were never supposed to know. I didn't want them to grow up thinking they were unwanted. I wanted them safe from your world, your money, your power, your ruthless family. Alexander's throat worked as he struggled for control. He looked down at the twins again, seeing his reflection in their innocent eyes. His heart, once hardened by ambition, cracked wide open. All this time, he whispered, his hand trembling as it hovered in the air, not daring to touch them. I thought I had everything. But I had nothing. Nothing without you. Without them. The guests had gone silent now, every eye watching history unfold. Cassandra's father stepped forward, face red with fury. This is outrageous. Alexander, you will fix this, now. Our families, our empire, depends on this marriage. But Alexander's response was swift, cutting. He turned his back on the altar, on Cassandra, on the carefully planned empire their families had built. His hand reached for Eliza's trembling fingers. I don't care about the empire, he said, his voice strong, carrying across the hushed room. I care about them. About my family. Eliza's lips quivered, her walls crumbling under the weight of his confession. For the first time in years, she saw not the billionaire groom, but the man she had once loved, the man she thought was lost forever. The twins, sensing the shift, peeked out from behind her and looked up at Alexander. Ethan whispered, Mommy, is he our daddy? Eliza's breath broke as she turned to face her sons, unable to hide the truth any longer. Yes, she whispered, he is. And with that single confession, the ballroom fell into stunned silence, the fate of Alexander Stone, and the family he never knew he had, hanging by a fragile thread. The man standing at the altar, about to marry someone else, was not just a stranger, but their father.